A lot of times, atheists will say things like, science is the most reliable method for discovering truth. And that's true if we're talking about scientific truths. But of course, scientific truth isn't the only kind of truth that exists. This fact is evident from the fact that science itself rests on a number of assumptions that can't be proven scientifically. These are assumptions that scientists have to make before they can even do science. So, since these assumptions have to be made in order to do science, science can't account for them. But then that means that science can't be the cornerstone of truth, because the veracity of science depends on these assumptions that science can't prove. Some of the common assumptions that science makes are as follows. The assumption that nature is orderly and the laws of nature describe that order. The assumption we can know nature. The assumption that all phenomena have natural causes. Now that's a big one, because that means supernatural explanations are discarded regardless of the evidence. In other words, scientists who make this assumption are presupposing that there are only natural explanations. This is what's called a presupposition to naturalism. But of course, when scientists do this, all they're doing is begging the question. They're starting out with the very conclusion that they're coming to. If you presuppose that only natural explanations exist, then of course you're only going to consider natural explanations, because those are the only kind of explanations you'll accept, since your philosophical assumption rejects the notion of supernatural explanations. This is clearly unreasonable, because this means even if supernatural explanations do exist, you'll never accept any kind of evidence for them, since the underlying philosophical assumption in your reasoning says that supernatural explanations don't exist. That's why a lot of times when atheistic scientists come across something they can't explain, they'll say, just give us enough time and we'll find a naturalistic explanation. But that's clearly begging the question, because they don't know if they'll find a naturalistic explanation. They're just assuming they will. This is not sound reasoning. Someone who is really seeking the truth shouldn't have any kind of bias. They should be willing to follow the evidence wherever it leads. Now, just to be clear, in this video, I'm not attempting to make any arguments for what is the cornerstone of truth. I'm just pointing out that science can't be the cornerstone of truth, since it depends on assumptions that it can't account for. So atheists should stop asserting that science is the most reliable method for discovering truth, because again, it only deals with scientific truth. It certainly doesn't account for theological truth, or philosophical truth, or historical truth, or any other kind of truth not related to science. Scientific truth is just one kind of truth that exists. It is not the cornerstone of truth.